welcome to the ESI Africa studio at African Utility Week. I'm Rose Bundock and I'm joined now by Mokgadi Modise, Chief Director of Clean Energy at the Department of Energy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this interview.
You're welcome. So the Department of Energy has unveiled a new labelling system for household appliances today with a view to making consumers choose more energy efficient products. Can you tell us, I know you've been involved from the start on this programme, can you tell us more about it?
Sure, thank you for inviting the department to share information further. Yes, indeed, the Minister unveiled the energy efficiency label today, and with the label what we are saying, together with the Department of Trade and Industry, we're saying consumers need to be more aware as they do their procurement, purchasing appliances, which of the appliances are energy efficient. You would agree with me that we all need appliances that are energy efficient. We always complain about our electricity bills, and this is the moment that we need to make the right choices on being informed. And this is a way of alerting the consumers that as you go to the shops, you need to choose energy efficient appliances, and more information as from today. The appliances that you would be purchasing, you need to make sure that they are labeled accordingly. And from today, what we're saying is that the energy efficiency label would be focusing on 12 appliances which are more based within the building sector. Since we kind of sharing with the consumers that it would be difficult to dissociate the appliances from the building sector. Way back, the strategy focused on subsectors. However, the overall target that was set in terms of the demand reduction or energy intensity reduction was 12%. Okay. Within the building sector in particular, we had 15% because we believe that that's one area where we can save a lot of energy. And since the appliances are part and parcel of our energy consumption in the building sector, we had to start from choosing the 12 most used in the household space. And those are the appliances we're focusing on.
So how easy do you think it will be to communicate that to consumers?
We think it would be easy because these are the appliances that are being used on a daily basis. You are in your residential space at home, you use these appliances. At work, we're using these appliances. Within the work environment or the building sector in general, these are part of our daily lives. You look at a refrigerator, you use that on a daily basis. I mean, in particular in summer, you would not, have your way for the whole week without having touched bases with a refrigerator. You look at your oven, you warm food on a daily basis. You look at air conditioners, this is part of our warming space. So we think these are the appliances that you use on a daily basis and you see them on a daily basis. And for the fact that we all complain about the electricity bills, which every month, you get touched with when you have to pay your municipal account, there is no way that you wouldn't put focus on. And we are now moving from the space of using old appliances, and in the energy efficiency space, on a daily basis, we get to, in one way or the other, we're using energy. You would have listened to the keynote address by Dr. Yumkela. He indicated how energy plays a central role within our daily lives. And if you look into the international broader space, Goal 7 of Sustainable Development Goals, it's now focused on energy, and it has never been in the Millennium Goals. So we believe that we need to internalize those international goals that South Africa is part of in making sure that each and every citizen does his or her part in making sure that as a collective we contribute significantly. And from now onwards, we would be taking an opportunity of using other platforms where we interact with all levels or any fora in ensuring that people are aware of the appliances that they use, on how they can make a difference within Save the Energy campaign. So we see it as an opportunity that we can interact more than what we used to do in the past 10 years of energy efficiency strategy implementation. So we don't see it as a most difficult platform, because we're looking at using all the platforms. And when I'm talking about using all the platforms, I'm also including even the schools. Very soon, we would be having the Learners Focus Week, and we would be disseminating as more information as possible, using conferences, using seminars, even the imbizos, where our political principals are interacting with ordinary people in the country, with communities, because appliances are everywhere within all our spaces, not only within the urban spaces. So all the categories of our clients, we would make sure that we share this information with them, because we believe this is not an individual responsibility, but it's a country responsibility. Every citizen, wherever you are at any point in time, you need to act, responsibly when it comes to energy, being energy efficient. That's how we see it.
So the manufacturers will incur the cost of testing their appliances and receiving the label. Is there any danger that they will pass on those costs to the end user, the consumer?
As it stands, we don't see it as the cost being passed to the consumer, because ultimately, in the long run, the savings are there. It's a once-off step to making sure that you don't even lose much in terms of cost, because the more your appliance is not energy efficient, if you look at it in terms of consumption perspective, you will end up paying more. However, you might complain that the appliance is expensive in the beginning, but if you look at it in the longer term, you would see that you're saving in terms of cost, not only at a personal level, but at a national space, in terms of reducing our carbon footprint as a country. That would have contributed a lot. And if you were to quantify in monetary terms the emissions to the monetary terms, you would see that you have even saved more from the personal space, including to the country commitment, because South Africa is one of the highest emitters in the world. We are the 11th, and it's not something that government can do it alone. We need to make sure that we do it at all levels, all the stakeholders. That is why it's so important that government needs to work with the whole value chain in terms of up to the end user, the manufacturers, the retailers, in disseminating this message.
Will there be any incentives if you have an old refrigerator? Will there be an incentive to get rid of the old one and buy a new energy efficient model?
Yeah, I need to indicate that in terms of incentive, that's one area that we're still looking at on how best we will contextualize that within the South African context. We are currently looking at internationally how the incentives have been applied, and we are very mindful of the fact that it's not always a cut and paste. We can't just take as they are implementing in their own countries. We also need to look at how the South African context is and see what works, what would work for us, together with other regulatory frameworks. Yes, it's an important aspect. Like, for example, let me just touch on the Mexican one, where they are taking their old fridges to the retailers and get 50% off the current price. So we are looking at different models of, other countries to see what would be best for the country. And it's not only something that the Department of Energy is looking at alone. We're working together with Department of Trade and Industry, because we still need to keep touch with the trade and industry sector and also get their views and inputs, and also work with Department of or National Treasury, because when we talk about an incentive, it has to ultimately be allocated through the normal fiscal allocation.
I suppose the other end, the penalties. You know, if a manufacturer doesn't get their appliances tested and labelled, what would happen then?
The sector of appliances would be treated same like other sectors where if the industry doesn't comply, they would be reported. Currently, or like in the unveiling, it was indicated that it's a matter that Department of Trade and Industry is looking at. They would be reported through the Consumer Goods Council in terms of their non-compliance, and law enforcement will take its course in terms of those who are not complying, because from now onwards, all the appliances, each one of them would be indicated in terms of what is expected of it on the minimum kilowatt hour that is expected, to show how efficient it is and within what margin does it fall. And if it doesn't fall within what is expected of it, consumers are encouraged to report those, because we're trying to eliminate the inefficient appliances from the system. And for us to achieve the objective of being a country that is energy efficient, we need to make sure that from all angles, when we see any unlawful act, we report it. That would be, consumers acting within their right and making sure that we all own the space of energy efficiency. And as a collective, we believe that we would be in a position to implement efficiently than if we keep quiet.
These kind of labelling systems are quite commonplace in other countries. Would you say it's taken a while for South Africa to adopt a similar system?
I wouldn't say it has taken a while for South Africa to adopt this system, on the basis that we were very mindful that even when other countries have implemented, we still need to do our homework. We still need to satisfy the regulatory framework within the country and make sure that there is alignment. We also needed to consult nationwide and make sure that all the stakeholders are happy with what would ultimately be ours, but like not be referred as Department of Energy's label. So that consultation period is very important. And in taking that further, once you have looked at what is happening in other countries, you also need to go back and see what is working for the country and what would not work. And in some instances, you find that you also have to do further work in terms of researching.
Yeah.
And I would take it to the point that the National Energy Efficiency Strategy was released in 2005. And if you look back at the time when the strategy was published, not all the regulatory frameworks or the tools were there. We had to implement, as well as making sure that we close the gaps as we progress. And this is one of the areas that we felt comfortable that at the moment, this is the time that we have satisfied most of the areas within the appliance sector. So as you are very clear about the manufacturers, we also needed to get their input. We also needed to engage the council. We also needed to engage the laboratories, and like other organs of state, like the South African Bureau of Standards, they also needed to do some work within their own processes and make sure that all the regulatory tools are there. I hope you are aware that the minimum energy performance standards were released in February. And on its own, the standards you need to consult. And like that consultation process, at times, it comes with more work in terms of making sure that all the stakeholders within the value chain, starting from the manufacturing to the end user, are satisfied. And I would say we have taken reasonable period in terms of doing the due diligence and satisfying ourselves as a country to make sure that if we were to be asked, like for example, to respond to the 25 policy recommendations by the International Energy Agency, I would say we have fared very well.
Okay, and one last question. Do you think other African countries will now be looking at South Africa's energy efficient labelling system and thinking, should we be adopting similar?
I would also encourage them to do so, because if we were to take Africa forward or energizing Africa, it's not only the responsibility of South Africa to do so, but it's our responsibility as the citizens of Africa as a continent and that's the right process to follow. And like as our minister indicated today, to say we are talking about energy efficient, but we are also mindful that it would be difficult to talk about energy efficiency in areas where there is no energy or there is no electricity. So these are competing objectives that you cannot close your eye on. You still need to be mindful that as much as we are talking about energy efficiency, some of our areas are not electrified. And how do we make sure that we save more energy and pass it to the areas that are not covered at the moment?
Okay, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
That's all we've got
Thank you
time
very
for.
much.
Thank you.